Hey everyone, this is E. Miller, and welcome back to Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. And please welcome back my very good guest, Todd Rayner. Todd,
Thanks for having me on.
thanks for coming on. For you guys remember, he's actually the creator and writer of Annabelle and Ice Pick. And tonight, he's actually going to be talking about his latest Kickstarter campaign for his fourth issue of Annabelle. So, Todd, why don't you remind the audience, what Annabelle's about and what's going to happen without revealing too much in the climax this year? Because we want to make sure you buy it.
Exactly. This is a buildup of it starts out in Ice Pick. What's nice is I wrote Annabelle as a standalone story. So you don't have to buy Ice Pick, but those 4 issues do have her first appearance, and you do get a little kind of peek into her character, and that's where she's introduced. This story is basically her story. I'm someone who likes lore. I love dragons. I love villains, good villains, mythological creatures, things like that. And with Annabelle, I kind of went and thinking about like what's a good villain. Love dragons, so I researched dragons. Coming to find out that Cimmeria was basically the first recorded dragon was from Cimmeria. His name was Kerr. Looked up the lore. I was like, this will be a really cool villain. So I almost maybe did it backwards. I had the main character. I didn't know what the story was about, but I had this really cool villain. So I wrote a story around the villain that included the main character. It's probably heresy to do that for writers, but for me, it kind of worked out, and I was able to really incorporate some of the things that I planted seeds in Ice Pick, very subtle seeds. That was really my first, story that I wrote. So it was kind of rough around the edges. I think with Annabelle, it's a lot more polished. There's a lot more thought into it. A lot of the holes are kind of closed up that I left open in the Ice Pick book. But this story is her story. It basically is, she gets a call from her sister, and it's pretty much like an urgent call. So she heads out to go find out what's going on with her sister. And on this trip, she gets kidnapped by one of the kind of minions that I like to call them, other dragon minions. And Kerr's not the only dragon in the kind of world that I've built. And so she gets kidnapped. And through the course of the 4 issues, Kerr ends up telling her, a lot of the secrets of her family, her parents, what they did, who they were. Come to find out that, Annabelle is a magical person. She, can do magic, and her parents were part of a witch coven. So it's got like a little bit of that more darker theme to it, the little like occult side of things. You find out that Ice Pick in the 4 issues of Ice Pick, he's got superpowers, right? And I explain it is how he kind of got them as traditional superhero powers. But then, I realized like if Annabelle's magic, how cool would that be to have, Ice Pick have that he's magical as well. So his superpowers aren't really superpowers. And you kind of learn part of that, you learn this in the 4 issues of Annabelle. And while she's being kidnapped and all this is kind of being unfolded, Adam, who is Ice Pick, Adam and Luke are also obviously an Ice Pick. They're kind of like, she should have checked in by now. So they head out to try to find out where she's at, what's going on. They end up kind of following a random dude into a cave system, and then they get kidnapped. So this dragon has kind of set things up to kidnap all of them and explain, why he's trapped into this cave and, what his plans are with humanity and how, I based a lot of Kerr's history and a lot of the character off of the lore and of Kerr, the actual kind of historical dragon. He likes to feed off virgins, and that kind of powers up his abilities and his soul so he can live longer. And, in the first 3 issues, I start to unveil a lot of this. So it's a little bit of story driven. And then, the last issue is a lot of action. It's basically a team up that happens at the end of this issue. And because we kind of know all the story right now. We know like why Annabelle was kidnapped. We know what Kerr did to her parents and everyone's parents and why he's in this cave. We've already established that foundation. So it's time to like wrap up the story, kick some butt, and find out who wins.
Simple enough.
And it's a little long. I'm terrible at elevator pitches.
Yeah, with elevator pitches, it's usually like maybe one or two sentences, about.
Yeah, not me.
But yeah, this is in depth. This is like a full conversation. This is like when you get off the elevator and you're having a 5 minute thing saying, "Wow, this is really great,"
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, tell me more of the story.
Yeah, and that's pretty much without a lot of spoilers. Like there's a lot of story in this 4 issues. So it's a lot of fun. I'm super happy the Kickstarter got funded. We're working on the second stretch goal, and I'm just gonna keep plugging away, telling more fun stories.
Well, my hats off to you, sir. My hats off to you.
Thank you.
Especially, this is such an engaging story, for what you're telling me,
Mhm.
and
Thanks.
kick-ass artwork is another thing. So
Thank you.
I dare all of you to go to the Kickstarter. In fact, let's show them the Kickstarter now.
All right. There is, there's a few little bits that are covered up, but just forewarn all the viewers. There's just some of the covers are a little spicy.
Well, you said they were covered up, so I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just show them.
Yeah, you can scroll down. I did for this campaign. I had a few people reach out to me and say, "Hey, we weren't able to back issue 2 or 3. Can you make maybe a cover bundle?" So I said, "Why not? Because I'm without the fans, I wouldn't be doing this, right?" So I spent the time and I went ahead and made bundles for all the prior issue covers. So if you just want the regular variants, that's a bundle. If you want, the spicy variants, that's a cover, or the virgin covers, like they're all available as add-ons. I also added the Ice Pick Definitive Edition trade, which is like 160 some pages of the first 4 issues of Ice Pick. It's got all my old crappy artwork from when I was a teenager and I created Ice Pick. I mean, it's literally stacked with like a lot of artwork and behind the scenes stuff that really went into that book.
Wow. And obviously, this is the issue 2 covers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the art team's fantastic. I really, really lucked out with these guys. Sergio is this is the first book he's ever worked on professionally. He's done a really good job. Yeah, he's all 3 of the guys and the one lady that kind of filled in for colors. They're all in South America. They're all super nice, super responsive. I know as indie creators, that's kind of in the back of our minds, but we never know what we're getting into when we work with, artists that may have never been professional. We just don't know what we're gonna get. But this team has been phenomenal, and I'm gonna keep them on board. We'll have them, do some covers for future books and things like that. So.
Yeah, I have to say with the dragon cover, for this, I would want to put that on a T-shirt. It's that good.
Yeah, Sergio, and he does well for at least the interior pages. He did a lot of traditional penciling and things like that. For his covers, he actually does digital art, so like digital painting style of art, like that dragon. And yeah, that's a great shirt.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, this is phenomenal, especially these dynamic action shots. And this is actually page 1 of issue 4 of Annabelle, folks.
Yeah, yeah, and it's consistent. I think as an artist myself, I find it hard to really be consistent with faces and drawing, things to stay consistent. But Sergio does a really great job at, all the characters look the same from kind of panel to panel, page to page. And, to me, that was pretty important that he was able to achieve that.
Yeah. Yeah, because the characters have to have a distinct look and they can't look all the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy drawing a mask, right?
Yeah.
Like Batman and Spawn. I mean, come on. But when you're drawing faces.
Yeah. Yeah. With when I draw faces, I usually like to have, give a personality, but based off people I know, and they always get a kick out when they're in my comics. And like, really, you drew me in that? It's like, yeah. So it's for me to make them real.
Yeah. And I'm always open to feedback too. Like I love when people read books and they're like, oh, maybe this idea or that idea, or, uh, I didn't really pick up on this. And it makes me kind of take a step back and say, how can I maybe write things a little bit better? Or even from working with artists, like, how can I write a script that gets my point across, that's not too wordy, that the artist can interpret, and it's exactly what I was thinking of. You know what I mean? And that's kind
Yeah.
of where you might be able to lose things in translation. No pun intended. But I mean, they all speak English, so it's nice. And I was a little, concerned about that. Like, I don't speak Spanish, but they thankfully, they speak English and they speak it well. So they understood, like, when they're reading a script, like, what does this mean? That it's cave system, it's nighttime, it's whatever. So
Yeah, that's the thing. It's hard to be that descriptive, but not too descriptive in a
yeah,
script.
yeah,
But yeah, you should always have people that are closest to you read your stuff just to make sure that it sounds right. It's not too much. But here's the thing, and people and creators forget this. Yeah, folks, creators are our worst editors. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make sure that the stories that we're going to tell you are solid and they're
yeah,
just not full of fluff and all that.
yeah. And I try. I mean, I depending on the book, but generally speaking, um, I'm not always a fan of really wordy books. I've come across only a few, thankfully, in my 30 plus years being a comic fan. But there's times where you're reading a book and it's just word balloon after word balloon after word balloon. It ends up covering up the art, and it's like I feel like I've gone back and forth, and even because I'm doing the lettering on basically all of the Dark Space Studio books, I'm doing the lettering, and that gives me the ability to kind of edit and rewrite if I need to. And especially in issue 4, pretty much wrapping up the letters next week, and it'll be by the time the campaign's done, the book will be 100% ready to go to the printers. I do have late pledges enabled, so I'm going to I'll wait a little bit for anybody to come in late. But if you can support the book now, I think make sure you get in on all the goodies. But I end up looking at some of the pages and I was like, oh, that's too wordy. Like, can I find a quicker way to get to that point? Or if I take out this sentence, does it really change the meaning of what's being said? And if the answer is no, it doesn't, then I take it out. And I'm really critical about trying to close gaps, make sure that it flows from page to page, issue to issue. And I like small casted stories. So Ice Pick is that way. Annabelle's. I mean, all my books will be that way. It's basically, you know, Ice Pick, Annabelle, Luke. That's your trifecta, and they're just fighting supernatural characters, right? With these fun stories. So yeah.
But let me ask you this: when it comes to actually writing the dialogue, you just talk about when you're actually lettering, obviously
Hmm.
the comics. Do you usually find it's hard to actually edit lines out that you actually liked, and you find you like, I can't keep this line in, because I have to make sure it doesn't sound too wordy, but I really like the
Hmm.
line.
Oh, if I like it, it's staying in. I mean, if it's something that's like, especially if it's crucial to the story, obviously, right? That to me, that kind of goes without saying. But if it's like a smart ass line, or and I tried to build these characters as they each are uniquely different, and they each do bring something to the formula. And I do with, especially with Annabelle, I really, I knew a little bit with Ice Pick, but as we know, like, the more we do something, the better we get. The more, being a fan of film, TV shows, media in general, I pay attention to the writing and the scripting. I
Yeah,
wanted it to sound natural, but I also want to give each character personality. So Luke is kind of the dorky smart guy, like the smart aleck kind of guy, and he'll say these short quips about whatever, and he's always trying to pick up the chicks. He's always trying to, like, hook up with. So I wanted him to stay within character. So I needed some of those, like, fun lines, right? And it breaks up the story, so it's not always super serious and it's the end of the world and everybody's dying. It's just
yeah,
like, you got to have that little, almost not really comedic break, but just that little break of tension. And so for me, I got better at doing that with Annabelle. I really took a step back and was like, okay, it took me a while to write all 4 issues because I was really careful about how I was telling these stories with these characters.
Yeah. Well, that's always the trick, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, is that something you kind of struggle with though when you're writing? Like, do you keep those moments in there? Do you just?
Yeah. That's the thing. I try to keep the moments in. If not all of them, I do keep certain ones because
Mhm.
I feel that they're very important to the story. But if I had to take them out, just to make just because they don't make sense, I was like, okay, I like this great moment, but it doesn't fit here, so let me just take it out. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's hard to start over again, but it's also kind of rewarding because you come up with a better moment.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Wow, that was a great cover art.
Thanks. Thanks. Since I kind of took a back seat on this, just doing writing, I do all the like my cover is the main cover, and I will say for this Kickstarter campaign, I do have, like I mentioned, like some of the bundles, but all the other covers from all the other issues are available. But this is one of those things where the variant covers are extremely limited. They will only be available for the Kickstarter and a few extras that I'm going to print when I go to shows. So it's something like if you like that cover, it's a small window basically to get it because I did that for Ice Pick. I had like 3, 4 variant covers for Ice Pick. They are all gone. I had a 3D cover that sold really well, and you put on 3D glasses, and it was like a legit 3D cover. Um, and I mean, those are gone. So I implore anybody watching or anybody that kind of catches this before the campaign ends, pick that cover out because you probably might not get another chance to get it.
3D cover.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm thinking. Now I'm thinking.
Well, I can help you if you need help on it. It was a pain in the ass to do. I think I had like 60 some layers in Photoshop. But, but it was ultra cool. I think I kept one copy because I would do myself a disservice if I didn't keep one for myself. But it was black and white, and then it had the red and blue, kind of like how it's separated, right?
Yeah.
So you basically Ice Pick was kind of like surfing, kind of like Iceman was surfing on ice, like he was doing that. And a high school friend of mine ended up drawing it, and I was able to separate like his hand because that's in the foreground, and then his one leg was in the foreground, and his body was more in the background, and then his arm was behind him, so that arm was further background, and then I had like it was kind of like wet, icy stuff that was like coming at you, so like I would separate those elements, and it was like the further you move the blue and red apart, the closer it looks to you. Or it could be the other way around, but I think it was like the further you move the red and blue away, the closer it's to the reader. So I just had to go in there and like, okay, create these like planes of like 6 or 7 planes of what's the closest, what's the furthest. But it was fun. It was really fun. But again, like those covers are gone, you know. So there's some really fun, Annabelle covers, and everyone, all the cover artists, all the variant cover artists, they have all been super professional. I got John Stinsman for those that are kind of the older elk. He's the old Evangeline artist. He's kind of a hero of mine. He's one of those guys I really looked up to, and as a teenager, young adult, his artwork really inspired me to do what I'm doing today. So he did a cover, which was great to meet him and work with him on a cover. That's another fantastic cover by Sergio. He doesn't disappoint. He's a super talented artist. I'll share out all their info so we can people that want to work with these guys, they're good, they're professional, they're timely, so highly
Yeah,
recommended.
yeah, yeah. For some reason, I don't know why this cover reminds me of Swamp Thing. No, not even
Hmm.
Swamp Thing. Creature from the Black Lagoon.
And both, and it to me it kind of felt a little bit of Michael Turner ish.
Yeah.
Um, and zombies show up in this issue too, so it's not just about dragons. I got zombies and ghosts, so I mean I kind of sprinkle in a little bit of everything.
Well, this is the horror genre. You know, you can add any creatures you want.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is going to cross over. The next book I release will be a straight horror, gory, scary, hopefully as much as I can write horror book. Um, but yeah, this starts that little bit of tension, a little bit of horror, a little bit of supernatural elements, and you have to pick up the issue to see who wins the day.
Yeah.
It's not a surefire. Not everyone makes it out alive.
That's the thing what I like about these type of comics is because you get along with the characters, you relate to them, you connect with them, and then all of a sudden there's the turn.
Yeah,
Okay, somebody that I like might die in this issue.
yeah, yeah. And I'm a fan of like shoe drops in shows and movies and stuff.
Yeah.
So I ended up writing Annabelle with that in mind. Like I said, I kind of did it backwards. I had the main character, but then I had this really cool villain. And how do I write a story about them? And I ended up dropping shoes throughout these 4 issues. A little bit of nugget in the first one, a little, something in the second and third, and then in the fourth issue, it just kind of all boils over.
Well, makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, very spicy covers, folks.
some of them are, but this is your only chance to get them, or few. If you live out in the Pacific Northwest, I will be ramping up shows next year, so I'm hoping, but I only have a handful of copies. That's the John Stinson one. Really love the way that turned out.
Yeah, yeah, look at all that.
Yeah, if you're a
It
fan of his
tells
work,
so much. It tells so much.
yeah. And that's actually the colorist Edwin. He reached out and was like, "Hey, would you mind? Could I do a cover for you?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." As a kind of a fan first, I always say that when I talk about comics, like I'm a fan first. I love reading comics. I kind of have gravitated more towards indie comics. I don't do as much mainstream anymore, but
Yeah,
I'm always willing to like let these people, not people, but let the artists, if someone reaches out and say, "Hey, could I do a cover for you?" If their artwork fits with what I'm working on, there's absolutely opportunity. So I've done that before with prior issues, like, you know, lesser known artists. I give them a chance to do a cover. I may not see a lot of people. It's not going to be selling thousands of copies, but to give these artists a chance to do a cover, that's something that helps them out, helps me out. Everybody's kind of happy.
yeah. I think it's the way to do it.
Yeah, it is a way to pay it forward. I believe.
Yeah. Okay, so the rewards. Okay, so it looks
And
like here. Okay, go on, go on.
I did a PDF bundle of all 4 issues. So that's another thing that's like, if you want to get on board, that's another bundle you can do. So
Yeah, obviously issue 4, $5, and this is the PDF of it.
digital, yeah.
Digital. And this is the standard cover A for $10.
Hmm.
That also includes the digital PDF along with the
And
sticker.
also goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is for $15 for variant cover B. Very nice.
I try to keep things reasonable. I know, like, people, for those of us that do crowdfunding campaigns, shipping definitely is a point of interest that we all have to take into consideration, but I try to price the variants relatively reasonable. Just being a smaller indie guy, I know as someone that supports Kickstarters, like you can get these variants, like $50, $75 variants. And it's just like, you know, I'm not that kind of guy yet. I don't think I'll ever be, because for me, like, I want people to have that book. And if that price point works for them, I want to give them that price point,
And obviously, the spicy ones, the prices have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Deservedly so. Deservedly so.
Yeah.
You got to pay a little extra. Yeah, but this is stunning stuff. Very pretty stuff. So this is there's also Ice Pick here.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the trade?
Yeah, that's a trade for $20. So it's like 160 some pages for $20. To me, I feel like that's a great value. A lot of trades are a little bit more than that, or a lot less than that, but way less pages, way less content. So again, it's just trying to give people that value for their dollar, especially nowadays. We want to see that value.
Yeah. Okay, and obviously this is $25 of the Virgin Berry cover.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of Virgin covers. In the '90s, I got suckered into like all the variants, so I'm kind of my own worst enemy. The variant cover craze of the '90s kind of swept me up, and I still like that to a degree. So I do like offering variants, but for me, it's just another way. As like I said, a fan of a lot of the artists I've worked with. I reach out to these fans. I see their work on social media, and it's like, hey, I love your artwork. Are you available for a cover? Right. So it's kind of, it's almost like a selfish way. Like for me, like I'm a little selfish that way. Like I have this great piece of art from an artist that I really like, and it's my character. You know what I mean? But then I can give that back to the fans because now they have something that's great piece of art of my character from this great artist. So, it's just that whole kind of way of making it work.
I get it. And of course, there's all the variant covers for $50.
Yeah.
And folks, for only $125, you get to own one original art piece done by Todd, drawn by 11 by 17.
And that's your character of choice. That doesn't necessarily have to be Ice Pick Annabelle characters. You want Spider-Man, you want Batman, whatever, you got it. And I don't slouch on detail. So I'll just put that out there. Like, I have a few original art pieces I did for prior Kickstarters, and I try to fill them up as best I can and give again value. Give someone. I know I'm not a big name artist. I try to keep my prices reasonable for original art, and I think 125 is pretty reasonable for original piece of art. Yeah, and that'll be traditionally it's penciled, and if no one really lets me know they only want pencils, I go ahead and ink it. So for me, like that's pencils and inks for 125. So feel free. That I feel there's good value there.
Folks, I would actually take that deal. I would take that deal now. Pledge it. I would do that.
It's a limited deal. It's a limited deal.
Yeah. I would do that. I would do the $50 of all the variants.
Well, I have even a better deal as you scroll down.
There it is.
There's one. Yeah, I mean I can't even count the covers. 12 or 13 covers, something like that. And $150.
So yeah.
And that's, to me, this is the best value for those that are willing and kind of have the funds. 200, you get original art, again, whatever character you want, and all the covers. So really, you're only paying $75 for all the covers versus 150.
Decisions.
Yeah, and all the stretch goals. I mean, you're gonna get right now. We unlocked all the digital wallpapers for computers, phones, tablets, all that good stuff. I try to give a variety of sizes when I do that as a stretch goal. I have a few other ones that hopefully we can get unlocked before the campaign closes. But yeah, who
Yeah.
doesn't want free stuff? I mean, stretch goals are free stuff.
Come on. Yeah. So just speaking about the campaign for a second, you're about 11 days away from
Yeah.
Okay, folks, we gotta up the numbers here. Pledges. I mean, come on, you're getting a great deal here.
Yeah, I try.
It's a great deal.
Yeah.
It's a great deal.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the whole Kickstarter thing. I was on another podcast a few days ago, and we started talking about the sustainability of using Kickstarter as distribution, and I think that's a can be a tricky subject to navigate. I don't personally believe it's sustainable for the kind of books that I produce. I think for a lot of the books that are kind of, and as what is it, not safe for work, whatever, those kind of books, like, you know, yeah, maybe it is sustainable. Those guys are pulling in 30, 40, 50, 100K, whatever it is. But for us guys that are, or us folks that are creating, indie creators, you know, a couple grand on a book, we know it takes more than that to make a book. So it's not like we're making money. And then you're talking about shipping, and we're talking about printing, and just the added costs that can go into that. Um, I kind of believe that maybe Kickstarter isn't as sustainable as we'd like it unless we really start hitting higher numbers. For ongoing series, for stories like yours and mine, there's got to be a better way to do it. And marketing, what's that magic thing to market your book? I think we all could have success if we just had more viewers on our products. But how do you get those viewers? I don't know if social media is necessarily, they play their games.
But here's the thing, and here's what I think how it should be done, with Kickstarter campaigns. What you should probably do is, even if you have your first issue, you should probably, if you're doing a mini series, just do the mini series, all in one shot. Do it as a trade, a collection as a trade. Obviously, have the campaign, but also try to get it in the stores. And this is why I should say this. If you have an ongoing series, right, a potential ongoing series, and the first 4 issues are like the first volume, you put it in the stores, it gains attraction. They can say, "Hey, don't worry, we got more coming." That will create, I think, a more bigger audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, social media also comes into a factor because you have to constantly promote, you have to constantly market.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's almost like, it's weird in my experience. Like, social media can be a double-edged sword. You can have thousands of friends, social friends. You can have a ton of followers on all the different platforms. I think when we're running there's like 6 or 7 social media platforms that I will post to, 5 or 6, and it's just this weird thing. You're always trying to stay ahead of the algorithm. You're always trying to change whatever. When they make a change, you have to pivot to stay relevant. And there's a lot of weird, like, shadow banning. I feel like there's things they don't tell you that hurt your visibility. If you're posting links, that hurts your visibility. If there's something I found out that if you end up sharing something, Facebook kind of doesn't like that. So they end up not giving you that visibility if you're sharing stuff. But again, it's like a social platform. Should they not want you to share stuff? Like, so for me, I get that that's a business for them, right? They have their business models, but I think more transparency as far as like what hurts or what helps people to be visible on these platforms. Because I mean, even with like 1,500 plus friends, I can tell you right now, I mean, they don't see everything I post. You know what I mean? Like, I post in probably 10 or 15 groups for indie comics, and we're talking probably over 10, 15,000 people are in these groups because we can see how many people are in the groups.
Yeah.
You think they all see everything that's being posted? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's this weird. You're always trying to stay ahead of the game, and for me, I think social media is definitely part of it. The stores, I have yet to really crack that nut on how to get books in the stores. I'm in two stores right now.
Yeah.
Um, one local to Seattle and one, oddly enough, in Pennsylvania. And but again, looking at brick and mortar, having a degree in business, it's like I understand that you have a wall of comics. As a designer, I know that my books have to stand out on that wall if I were on that wall. Okay, so that's why when I try to draw a cover, uh, as far as like how I approach it, I try to have something that's visually striking. It may not be anatomically correct. The coloring may not be accurate all the time as far as color theory and all these other things that can go into it. And I know that I do it so it's strikingly visual. And sometimes that overrides things that, people will critique and say, well, that doesn't look right, but it looks cool. If it looks cool, someone's going to pick that book up because, damn, that looks cool. You know what I mean? But as a business, it's hard. I understand, like, that's a hard sell for them. Here's 5 copies. Even if it's on commission, here's 5 copies. Maybe they sell, maybe they don't. You come in, you do a store signing. Okay. You get a 10th or maybe a 20th of the customers for that day that actually visit the store. So to me, visibility is probably the biggest thing I struggle with as a small indie creator. Having a platform that supports indie books that has the visibility. I mean, is there anyone out there really that has that visibility? I know Wizard used to do a really good job of like, but again, they were all mainstream mostly. Image blew up, and they were all about the Image guys. But there is definitely a hole for indie creators in today's space.
Well, okay, I can see your point about that because back in those days, back we're talking about the '90s,
Oh yeah,
especially with the Image guys, they were the rock stars of the
yeah.
indie comics because they were, dead set on, creating their own creator-owned
Hmm.
comics, and they weren't gonna let anybody tell them that they couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, everything changed. The money has obviously changed. They had the backing to do it. What they did originally. You know, it's a different world now.
Well, and I hear that, and there is some truth behind that, but I think a lot of it is I don't know if the landscape has really changed. I think what's changed is technology, and the introduction of the internet, the introduction of smartphones, the introduction of tablets, the introduction of for me, I can say I was like an early teenager getting into the comics, like GI Joe. I want to say it was like I don't know the early 20s issues. I
Yeah,
remember the silent issue 20. I think it was 21 was the silent issue, and I was already reading a couple issues of GI Joe. I think before that issue came out, and that just blew my socks off. Like that was a great issue. So we're talking late 80s, early 90s. I was a teenager, and I didn't have any other form of entertainment.
yeah.
So for me, I don't know, like, would comics be selling millions of copies of books if we didn't have the internet, all these other social media, all these other things to entertain people? I don't, maybe, maybe not. We sure didn't have streaming back then. We weren't binging a show over the weekend.
No,
I was sitting down reading comics on the weekend. I was drawing on the weekends. Like, so I think technology has forced comics to pivot in a way and to stay relevant. And you have these legacy characters that carry that industry, but then the writing has become very, very lackluster, and that's my biggest issue with a lot of mainstream stuff now.
yeah. Yeah, here's the thing. I really stopped reading mainstream stuff because, like you said, there's no real heart to it. It's all corporate. It's all done by committee.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
here's what I used to find myself doing, especially reading stuff like Spider-Man. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I have not been happy with the way Spider has been written, I'd say for the last 15 years. So then I would find myself going after reading an issue and being disappointed. I was like, you know what they should do, you know,
Yeah.
that's how it starts. Then I go into this, idea. I'm like, why would I give them that idea? Why don't I just do something like that for myself?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the landscape, the technology side of the landscape that's changed. You know, creators like you and I, that we can build stories, we can create comics, we can publish comics. I mean, when I was a teenager and I created Ice Pick, and even Annabelle showed up in that definitive edition trade, like there's some really horrid artwork when I was 16, 15, 16, 17 of Ice Pick. And that character was like very much Batman, Spawn, and Casey Jones kind of influenced, and I introduced a hot female, that's Annabelle.
Yeah,
But it's really bad. And back then, I mean, I literally, we're talking early mid 90s, like you couldn't publish an indie comic. You had to go through Valiant or, Image, right around when Image started, Malibu, you know, and it was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I ended up doing like to, I kind of made my own comic by going to Kinko's and just double siding 11 by 17, cutting it down and stapling. Like that's how I made a comic for myself as a teenager. So today we live in this great landscape of a world where, I got a book, I send a printer a PDF, and they're going to print me 5 copies. They're going to print me 10 or 20. Am I paying $4 plus for issue? Sure. Am I selling it for 5? Sure. I'm making 50 cents. But I don't do it for 50 cents. I do it because I'm a creator and I want someone else to enjoy that story. And I've
that's
gotten that.
cool.
That to me, that's a huge part of it. I, I didn't think that this is something I would enjoy. I love to do artwork. I've been drawing for over 30 years, professionally, not as long, obviously, but and even then, I never wanted to fit into that corporate mold of artists. Late 90s, yeah, I was influenced by a lot of the Image guys, and I had penciled portfolios that I would take to, Comic Cons. And back then, that's what we did, right? We would go up to somebody and say, hey, you mind taking a look at my portfolio? Some random editor, and I got some good feedback. I got obviously a lot of rejections, never broke it big. But as time went on, I was able to realize like I can just pay to have my books made. I don't need an editor. I don't need Marvel or DC or Image or someone to approve what I'm doing. I just do it myself. And I put together like a little ash can. It was like a 6-page preview of Ice Pick, and it was basically like I took it to a show, and sure enough, I selling them for $1. They were black and white, and I was just like, cool, I'm done. And people really, I think I sold like 10 or 15 of those. It doesn't seem like a lot, but as a guy that this is what I'm doing, this is the first 6 pages, it's black and white, it's lettered. That's it for $1. And people read it and like, you got more? Is this, can I get the full issue? And I'm like, oh, I'm working on it. Like it's not finished yet, but, and they enjoyed it. And same thing with Annabelle, when issue 1 dropped and I met some fans at a show, they were like, I cannot wait for issue 2. I loved how you set this up, the foundation, the character. I really like what you did. And for me, that's just that boost. That's that kind of euphoria, adrenaline to keep doing it. So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a unique world we live in where we can do this, even though maybe not all of us make money doing it. But as a hobby, eh, people read it, they enjoy it. So I keep making them.
yeah. Um, yeah, I'm the same way too because I just love hearing back from people saying, "We loved your comic."
Yeah.
When's the next issue coming out? I constantly get asked by that myself. For whatever issue I'm working on for my projects, like when are you gonna do the next one? So
Yeah.
yeah, there is adrenaline rush, but it also says, you know what? They really like what I have to offer here,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
a great feeling.
It's a great feeling. I agree. And, just having the social media platforms where we can show people what we're working on, we can tease, kind of give teasers, and we can, hey, I got this artist and here's part of their cover, or this is what we're working on. it kind of wets their palate a little bit so that they know as creators not going to leave them high and dry, because that's happened to me. I bought books and it's like the first issue, never saw a second issue. I mean, I think all of us have had that happen.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I refuse to let that happen. Like, I think Ice Pick took me about 10 to 12 months to make one issue because I did it all myself.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I will tell a complete story and I won't stop until that story's told. No matter how bad it gets, like, you'll always get a complete story from me.
Yeah, I'm the same way with all my books. So
Yeah.
that's the lesson you have to take for those who want to be comic readers. If you want to, if you got a good enough story that you want to do, you gotta get off your butt and do it. You gotta get off your butt and do it. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a lot of work, But trust me, it's always worth it when the fans come and say, "Where's your next issue coming out?"
Yeah,
it's always
absolutely. It's always worth it. And even we do these Kickstarters, I tend to keep my goal pretty modest. As I use Kickstarter as a way so the fans can get these issues first. And there's a little bit of a premium versus the retail price, and I recognize that, but you're getting that book before anyone else ever will. And as a fan of the story of the characters, like, I don't mind paying a little bit extra to get that. That's what pre-orders are for. That's what, going to the movie theater, you're seeing the movie before it's available to purchase or home, streaming type of thing. There's a premium there. And for me, it's like, it is even, and a lot of people ask me, like, how have you come so far? And that's a relative term. Like, coming far for you might be a little bit different than me, or like other people are on issues 12, 13, 50 or whatever, but for me, like, being as far as I am, this is the 9th, 8th book that I've written, that'll be complete. To me, that's a pretty decent body of work. It's only 2 characters right now, but that's 8 solid books.
Yeah.
And I plan on doing more. I have more written, but it's keep doing it. Like you said, just every day, try to spend a little bit of time, try to write that extra page or write that extra few panels, and, draw that extra page, ink that extra panel, whatever it be. You keep doing it, and it may take 6 months. It may take a year, but at the end of the day, like, you'll have something that's complete, and you can be proud that, like, okay, now I'm ready to go to print.
Yeah.
And even, you save up. I always tell people, they're like, well, the cost of so many things. Well, okay, if it's a priority to you, you're going to prioritize that, and you're going to save for that. Even though the way sometimes the economy goes, up and down, we all make priorities. We all make sacrifices. I've made sacrifices to do shows and to get these books made. So it's not easy, but, like, I agree. Those fans are like, man, I really enjoyed that issue. You got another one?
Yeah.
Like, not yet, but my Kickstarter's coming out next week. It's those types of things. And just plan on the marketing, try to strategize. For me, like, I try to strategize when I launch Kickstarters, that if I know I'm going to be at a show, I'll try to launch a Kickstarter to be at that show so that because I'm going to talk to more people, even if it's a smaller show, 5,000, 7,000 people. I'm going to talk to more people at that show than I could probably ever reach on social media in the 2 days.
Yeah.
So for me, and that's always seemed to work really well. And you can't always do it. If you're doing a handful of shows or a lot of shows, you're not going to be launching Kickstarters every month. But, that's just one of the strategies I've kind of played around with, and it seems to work pretty well.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
But here's my only piece of advice. Always be open to, expand, where you can market yourself.
Yeah.
So that's
I agree. And marketing is absolutely crazy. I mean, I work in the marketing department at my full-time job. And even though I work in that marketing department, like, doing marketing for comics it's a whole nother beast. Like, I'm not sure building that fan base of 1,000 or 100, 200 backers on Kickstarter, like, you get the word out, you have get your book in stores. And, it's just this weird, I don't know, nebulous for me, like figuring all that out. I mean, physically I can do it all, but then what works, what doesn't work? Where's the kind of return on investment? I can do an ad for Facebook, but I really don't know if that's helping me out financially. If I, spend that $50 on this ad that runs for a week, how do I know, like, oh, this backer came from this ad? Like Facebook doesn't really do that for you. Instagram, same thing. So you just kind of cast a wide net and you hope that something out there will stick.
Well, Todd, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show again.
Anytime.
Oh,
Anytime you want to talk about comics, movies,
absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah,
Anytime.
Absolutely. So please check out Annabelle issue 4 on Kickstarter. The link is down below. You only got 11 days left, so I would take advantage of it right now. And as always, I have to promote my own work. As always, here is Conan Hunter on IndiePlat.com. We do have a Triple Threat Comics website. I'm going to actually post about that later this week. Oh, we already got 2 reviews here. And here is issues 2 and 3, also available on IndiePlat.com. We are currently working on issue 4. I have to finish the last 6 pages. I owe my inker. Because I also do comics as a full-time job. I'm a freelancer, so this is my full-time job. I'm already working with a client right now. So don't worry, folks. I will get back to my projects very soon.
Do you do all the work for your projects? Like write, draw, all that?
Yes, I do all the writing and the drawing and the inking and the coloring and even the lettering.
Wow.
But I actually have Enrique Lopez, a very good friend of mine, inking issue 4 of my series, so I can actually have a little help.
Yeah. Well, that's a gift. That's awesome. It's very rare that we find creators that kind of do it all.
Well, yeah, because I was trained to do that. That was the first thing. And there's always something about doing it yourself. There's always something rewarding about that. But I want to make sure that I actually get the things done at a faster pace. So that's why I'm actually glad I actually have help. I think going forward. So that's gonna be interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, it also allows me to let go a little bit because I'm like, let's let someone else, interpret what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing because again, A, you're trusting other people. That's the first thing, and B, you like the results. I mean, I have Enrique's work is fantastic. He's inked for me a couple of times now, not just on the pages he's going to be working on, but also we collaborate on stuff. I'm like, his stuff is always coming out great. I was like, you know what? Let's let someone else actually interpret. Let's let someone else interpret.
That's what I found. That's exactly what inking is all about. It's interpreting lines. I'm doing some freelance work, inking as well, like digital inking, but still inking, doesn't matter. And, when a writer that I did some coloring for was like, hey, there's this Native American tribe out here that, there's a high schooler that's putting together a comic. I threw your name out there as an inker, because I do ink, obviously, my own work. And I don't professionally, this will be actually maybe the first professional inking gig because I'm getting paid for it. But, you're right. I'm taking his artwork and I'm interpreting line weights. I'm interpreting detail. I'm interpreting everything I see into kind of my own vision, right? Yeah. So you end up with something his, but also uniquely yours. Yeah. So that it's fun working with other people. It definitely is.
Yeah, it is. And Enrique always tells me that, I hope I do your work justice. I look at the results, I'm like, you're doing it justice.
Yeah, nice. And that's all we can hope for, right?
Yeah, that's all we can hope for.
Just do me justice.
Exactly. Well, thank you again, and good luck on this fourth issue. I can't wait, to have you back on to talk about
I
more.
appreciate it.
And folks, that's gonna be it for us tonight. I'm Ian Miller, and this has been Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. Have a good night, folks.
Thank you.